Hello, and thank you for tuning in. This video is going to be a bit different. I'm only going to discuss solar power for your home, what I did to get it on my home, and what you may or may not want to do, and what obstacles you're going to come up against in doing it. So if you're not interested in solar power at all, please check out some of my other videos. There's over 200 of them on the channel. And hey, let's get busy here. So this entire video will relate to my experience doing this. Your experiences may differ. You're clearly going to have different installers, so to speak, to give you quotes. So you may get different numbers, different estimations, different situations like that. But I went through about 6 months of research and discussing various installations with different providers before I came up with my solution, which I think actually beat the game. And it is a game. There's a lot of twists and turns here, and there's a lot of, let's say, flexibility in pricing. So, okay, what do you need to consider if you want solar power? Well, you need to consider the price of electricity first. Is it economically viable for solar panels to replace your on-grid electric system or your utility bill? So right now, it's pretty high. Electricity is not going to go down. It's pretty high. If you're in an area where it's exceptionally high, that may work for you. But you have to be in the right location for it, okay? So first off, take it right off the bat. If you are up in upstate New York or New England or Michigan or any of these climates, Minnesota, that get a lot of snow and they have overcast weather all the time, solar's not for you. It's just not going to be a good value proposition. Sure, during the summer months, it will generate a lot of electricity, but it will never cover the cost of your investment. You'll never break even on that. Down in Florida, southwestern states, California, places like that, they get a lot of sun year round and do not have things like snow that stays on your roof or on the ground for months on end. Well, solar power may work for you. You need to have a roof space, unless there are some people that put it on a grid in a field, but that requires a lot of property, and it's expensive to do that anyway. So you need to have roof space that is southern facing. Most of my roof space, actually, or a significant amount of it, is southern and southwestern. And so I had enough roof space that did that, and so I was covered. You don't want to have a lot of trees around your roof, because then for a good portion of the day, the panels will be in the shade, and they will just, they just won't really put out much power. Okay, so let's discuss what on-grid and off-grid mean. On-grid means simply you're still connected to your power company. You can have a battery backup with on-grid, but it essentially means on-grid, you're still connected to the local power grid with your utility company. Off-grid, on the other hand, means your home, or even if you just do it on your workshop or whichever, is completely off-grid and it's powering itself. That off-grid requires batteries, and batteries are something we'll discuss in a bit. It's something that I did not personally do. I stayed on-grid. Okay? There are two types of offers that solar power installers are going to have. One, and most will offer this. There are some that exclusively offer the latter or the other, but most will offer you a purchase or a lease agreement. Some will exclusively try to offer you a lease agreement. And why is that? Because they make a lot of money off those. So let's discuss purchase first. What does purchase mean? Purchase means that you buy all the equipment, everything, and you get a warranty. Usually the warranty is 20 to 25 years. And that warranty will cover, for the first few years, it will cover labor and hardware. And then after that, it will just cover the hardware. So if a panel fails, you'll have to hire somebody to come out and pay the person to replace the panel, but they will give you a free panel. Okay? So if you go that route, right, what the installers are going to do is they're going to look at your electric bill over the course of 6 to 12 months, and they're going to average it out. And they're going to say, okay, last year, your highest bill was $500. Your lowest bill was $200. So we're going to average it out and say, over the course of 12 months, say your electric bill is on average $350 a month. So they're going to tell you how many panels you need. So they're going to say, okay, you need maybe 30 400-watt panels for that. And then they will price it accordingly, okay? And the prices are all over the map for purchase. I had, for this house, it's a big house, and at the time the workshop was about to go up, and I really didn't want to have a lot of additional electrical bills. And so I really looked into how to do this. And I got quotes from 40,000 cash up to, well, 40,000 was actually not really 40,000, but let's just say 55,000 to about 80,000. The reason why I said 40,000 is because they'd tell you, well, yeah, you're going to pay 55,000, but then you'll get a third of that back from the what did they call it? The residential clean energy credit. Okay, and so they'd always tell you the lower number. Oh, it's really only 40,000 that you're going to pay because you're going to get the residential clean energy credit. Okay, as I learned from talking with the permitting office and also with my accountant, that's not true. It wasn't true then, and it's absolutely not true now because the clean energy credit has expired this year, and so you're not going to be able to get that. So if you're looking at this and they're talking about this clean energy credit, you're not going to get it, okay? When I was looking at it, what I learned was that only about a third of the people who applied for it actually qualified for it. The permitting office could not explain why most people didn't get it. All they told me was don't count on it. So right off the bat, I had this uneasy feeling with the solar power installer companies because they were just acting like this was gospel. And so they're like, oh yeah, it's only costing you 40. And I remember saying this on the 40,000 when I was like, no, it's actually costing me 55. You're getting, they price it out and act like they were selling you this for 40,000, but they weren't. They were selling it to you for 55 and then saying it was 40 because of this tax credit that you were supposedly going to get. Now, as it turns out, I actually got the tax credit. It certainly wasn't $15,000, I wish, but I'll explain why that is. But people I spoke with who had also done solar did not receive the tax credit. So either way, there's shenanigans right off the bat with how they're telling you what this costs. I did have companies quote 75,000, but then they'd say, but you'll only pay 60 or 58 or whatever the 15% off number was, or 30% off rather. And so they were lying as well, even though they were jacking the price up. And the number of panels they would tell me, they told me anywhere from 38 to 44 400-watt panels. So that, okay, it's how they do the math, and that's fine. But it did give me a good number, so I knew about how many panels I would need. Okay, so the purchase option, the pricing's all over the map, and it's very expensive. It really is expensive. And you have to consider, let's just say on average your bill is $350 a month. How much a year does that cost you? Well, that costs you about $4,200 a year in electricity. Okay? Well, if they charge you $40,000, it's going to be more than 10 years before you actually start profiting off of these panels. And that's a long time. You don't even know if you'll be in the house in 10 years. So it may be whomever buys your property that ends up profiting from your investment in solar power. And so that's part of the value proposition. You really need to consider that. Okay? Now, let's talk about the lease option. This is by far the most expensive way to go. The lease option, what they'll do is the same thing. They'll tell you you need this many panels and your average bill is $350 a month. So what happens is they will put a solar power setup on your property that will cover that $350 a month, okay? So what they'll tell you is you'll pay $350 a month and it'll never go up. Never go up is probably the wrong way for them to word that, because the solar power will only last 20 years. And realistically, after about 10 or 15 years, the degradation of the panels will mean that you will definitely not be producing enough power. So, but sure, for the first 5 to 10 years, you shouldn't have a problem with an electric bill, but you will still be paying $350 a month. So let's talk about what that adds up to. Some of the providers offered 20 years, some providers offered 25-year leases, okay? So there's with purchase, you also have, of course, if you take out a loan, which they really want you to do, they don't want you to pay cash. They want you to take out a loan, and then you've got the interest rate, which also costs more. With the lease rate, it's kind of, they're basically taking out the loan for you. Your payments are $350 a month for 20 or 25 years. So, okay, so you're paying $350 a month for that long, and you don't have an electric bill. The value proposition there is that in 10 years, your monthly electric bill may very well be average $500 a month, but you'll still be paying $350. So what they're promising you is that they're going to lock you in at this lower rate, okay? The problem with that is, aside from the fact that you don't own the equipment, it means that if you decide to sell your home, you are going to end up having to get a buyer that is willing to take on this lease for the solar power. And if not, you're going to have to get a buyer that, or you're going to have to buy the equipment from the leasing company or the solar power installer. Okay, and keep in mind that all of this, solar power companies usually don't stay in business very long. Why? Probably for the reason the used car dealership that has like 10 cars on the lot down the street doesn't stay in business very long. There's a lot of shady practices going on. There's a lot of shady installers. Okay, so if you go with the lease option, you're going to end up paying that $350 a month to someone. How their support and service will be, you don't know. You may in 3 years be dealing with a completely different company who bought out these leases, and when things go wrong with your system, you may not actually get the proper service. And the same can be said for if you purchase it. If something goes wrong with your purchase system, you're counting on the fact that you've got this hardware warranty. The hardware warranty is technically with the manufacturer of the equipment, okay? So you could maybe deal directly with the manufacturer if you can prove that you were the original purchaser of these panels and that this warranty applies to you, and maybe they'll send you a new panel. But again, you can't rely on your solar power provider to be there in more than a few years, because from what I've seen, and in fact, one of the ones I dealt with is already gone, and that was 18 months ago. They've already closed. All right, so let's talk about batteries, okay? If you're doing off-grid, you need batteries. There's no other way to do it. If you're doing on-grid, you can have batteries. So if a hurricane comes by and power's out for a few days, you can actually run your refrigerator and things like that off the batteries. I didn't go for the battery option, and I'll tell you why. Because it's very expensive, and though your panels maybe last 20 to 25 years, your batteries won't. Your batteries are good for 7 to 10. And like all batteries, they start to degrade right off the get-go. So I would have needed a vast array of batteries to cover a 40-panel system. And I just didn't like the idea. I don't really trust the technology yet. I live in a very old house. It's a wood frame house. And if you've ever seen what 100-year-old wood burns like, if these batteries were to catch on fire, that house would be gone in 3 minutes. And I probably wouldn't get out. So I didn't want the battery option, but mostly I didn't want the battery option because it was too expensive. I could have put the batteries in the workshop and run a line, but honestly, it's just very expensive. So if your solar power setup is like going to cost you $40,000 to $50,000, your batteries are going to cost you 10 to 20 minimum, and that's a lot. That's actually a big increase. So the reason why you want batteries is in case power goes out, and the second reason is in case something catastrophic happens and your local utility company is no longer available to provide electricity to people. Okay, so I chose not to do the batteries. Another reason why I chose not to do the batteries is none of the providers I dealt with were willing to actually use the Tesla batteries, which are apparently the best on the market. They are more expensive, but they are the best and the most reliable. And none of them would do it, which makes you kind of wonder why that would be. Okay, insurance. Your homeowner's insurance may actually go up because you've got solar panels. And why that is because, let's just say a hurricane goes through and it destroys your roof. Well, those solar panels have to be replaced as well. And that, you might get your roof replaced for 20 or 30,000, but then you add 40 to 60,000 for that solar panel setup. So a lot of insurance companies will just say, oh, you have solar panels. If your roof isn't brand new, they're not going to want to insure your house. So you may actually lose your homeowner's insurance from doing that. But at the very least, it's likely your homeowner's insurance will go up. And interestingly, your property taxes may also go up. So it's kind of not exactly what you would think with all this push for green energy that oh, if you did that, your property taxes would go up. Now, in Florida, that's simply not the case. Florida has a statute that the Green Energy Act will not increase your property taxes. It's actually, they can't do that. Other states aren't like that, so you need to look into that because you don't want to be paying also on top of everything else more on your property taxes. Okay, last thing on insurance and taxes is liability. Depending on how many panels you put up, like let's just say you go over 10,000 watts, you will have to add $1 million insurance liability policy. And that is it. That is if you don't already have that on your current homeowner's policy. So if you think about it, 10 400-watt panels will take you to 4,000. 20 takes you to 8,000. 25, if you've got more than 25 400-watt panels, you need to have a $1 million liability policy. You need to have this because without it, the power company will not turn on your solar at all. They won't connect it to the grid, and so they won't shut your power off. You just won't receive any benefits from having solar power. If you try to bank your energy, you won't get it. Hey everyone, just a brief interruption here. If you're enjoying this content and you'd like to support my channel, and especially if you like cats, I've written a series of chapter books for ages 8 and up, fully illustrated, called Flea Biscuit and Friends. The first book in the series is Flea Biscuit Finds a Home, followed by Flea Biscuit Summer Vacation, and finally, Flea Biscuit's Magic Christmas. They're available at all local booksellers as well as on Amazon.com. I will post a link in the video description. And hey, that's my pitch. Back to the video. Okay, so that leads me to what is banking solar power? Okay, so in the summer months here, your panels, like mine, probably don't put out quite enough electricity to cover the air conditioning and anything else you're running, a fan or whatever, and TVs, or whatever you use. They may cover half of it, they may cover 2/3 of it, but they won't cover all of the electricity. However, here in Florida, we get 7 months where it's not very hot out, it's very sunny, it's very dry, the sky's pretty clear, and so we're getting full sun. The weather's cool because the panels aren't quite as efficient in the summer when they get really hot. But in the fall, winter, spring, which is all the same season here in Florida, they actually are at peak. So in the summer, you will still have an electric bill. For me, my highest electric bill this summer was the bill that came in the first week of August, which was for July, and that was about $200. But my bill for December, January, February, March was under $30. April was, I think, 34. May was like 38. And June, it started to go up a little bit. It's like maybe the bill for June that I got in July was maybe a little over 100. And so what happens is, in the summer, your panels are at peak output. You're using all that electricity, so nothing goes in the bank. The solar power company or the solar power system in the winter or cooler months puts out very likely more electricity than you're going to use. Well, what happens to it? Well, the grid or the local power utility company will not pay you for that, but they will give you credits. So in all the winter months, you're banking power credits because your panels are putting out more electricity than you're actually using. They're feeding it into the grid. And so your meter is not only calculating what you're using, it's calculating what you're giving to the power company, okay? So what happens is then you go through all the cool months, and now you've got your first really hot month where you used more electricity than your panels put out. Those credits start feeding back into it, which is why May here is pretty hot, but my bill for May was peanuts because I had banked so much. And my bill for June was pretty low because I banked so much. The first real bill that I got was the first week of August for the month of July. And then I saw that the solar panels were easily covering 50% of the amount of electricity that I used. So if you do the purchase option and you're on the grid, you're going to have to deal with that reality, is that in the summer months you are going to have an electric bill, okay? Well, technically, if you lease it, you're going to have an electric bill as well every month, but that electric bill is actually going to be going to the whoever owns the lease on your equipment. And I will say that the lease is for 20 or 25 years, and if I haven't covered this, a lease for 20 years on that is $84,000 for that $350 a month thing. A lease for 25 years is $104,000. So you're held to that. You owe that money, and you will be paying it like a car payment every month. If you lease and you hit 20 years, the solar power company does not take the equipment back. It's not like, okay, your lease is expired, so no, they don't. And most of it's probably junk by then, so they're not really going to bother. At least that's what I was told, is they won't come and remove the whole system from your house. They just go, okay, you're paid up, and that's it. And mostly because most people, on average, I think they said 90% of the people will not still be in that home in 20 years. So it's not really going to matter to them.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying this content. If you'd like to support my channel, I've now set up an eBay store where you can get autographed copies of my books, CDs, and more. I'll post the link in the video description. And now, hey, let's get busy.
Okay, I covered the clean energy credit, but just let me state this again. It's expired. If they tell you you're going to get this, the federal government is not going to give you a dime off of your taxes, okay? It's expired. All right, that leads me to the last part. What did I do? And why do I say that I beat the game? There's a third option. Obviously, the companies that install solar power are not going to tell you about this option. What is it? Well, you can buy all this equipment. You can do some research and buy it. And then all you need is a licensed electrician, has to be licensed. You cannot, at least in Florida anyway, you cannot pull the permits to install this yourself, okay? Not going to let you do it. And honestly, don't. It's not that it's that complex. It's just that there are a dozen little tiny rules. How it's mounted to the house, how the cabling runs, where the panels are located, how they're mounted down, how it's wired into your electrical box, what tags. You can't use stickers. They need plastic tags on your electrical box, okay? All of that stuff, a licensed electrician that does solar power will know. So you can just go, even on Amazon, you can buy this equipment. You need basically 4 components. You need panels. That's an expensive part.
You need junction boxes, which go on the back of the solar panels.
A lot of panels you can buy with them, You definitely need them, okay? You need cabling. You need to run cables to all these panels, and all these panels run into your electrical box. And you need racks and mounting hardware to put this onto your roof, okay? That's the four major components that you need. There's other things, clamps and piping for running the cabling down the side of your house or whichever. But the electrician will probably just know what to do there. So if I were to buy 40 panels for my house, I priced it out, and it was under $20,000 for the equipment. Well, then you're like, well, your best buy option that I got was about $55,000. What would the electrician charge? Well, you'd be surprised. The electrician I hired showed up with a couple of guys, and the whole thing was set up, mounted, and wired in about 6 hours. So it's not nearly as expensive. He did have to come back because the city had certain requirements for, as I said, the plastic tags, because he screwed up. Even though he does this, he screwed up and put a sticker on my electrical box that said, there's a solar power setup, because there's a risk to the power company there, because you're pumping a lot of electricity in. So they need a plastic tag that won't fade in the sun or get damaged. But he screwed that up, so he had to come back for that. And also one of the panels failed, and he came back and fixed that. But that was like within the first few days. So the installer was under $5,000. So right there, if you say, I can do this myself, if I find an electrician that will install it, I can do a whole setup for $25,000. Well, that's half of what you'll pay to an installer. So when you think about your profit and loss statement, now you're down to, within 5 years, your system's mostly paid for itself and has been generating electricity since, okay? So you've got a 5-year investment before you start getting free electricity. But I found another option. So you recall what I said earlier about insurance companies don't want to insure a home with solar, because if the roof gets damaged in Florida from a hurricane, they have to replace the roof. And if you have solar, they have to replace the solar as well. And the interesting thing is, apparently, they don't repair the solar. They just replace it or just scrap the whole thing. I was surprised to learn that many people will not replace the solar. They put it on their house, and if a hurricane wrecks it, they don't put it back. They just replace the roof and just go back on grid and ignore it. So that should tell you something about how much people, about buyer's remorse, I guess. However, when the roofing company takes this equipment off, they don't scrap it. They sell it. And what I found was, on Craigslist and Marketplace, I found people that buy this equipment, refurbish it, and sell it back on the market. So I contacted this company because I saw their ad, and they advertised 37 panels with all cabling and the racks and mounting hardware. And they said, it's 1 year old, and you can verify this because the panels and the inverters have date codes on them. And you can verify this, and they wanted, they said they'd install it for me for $15,000. Well, that's significantly less than 25. It turns out, their electrician was a little goofy. He was licensed. I didn't really like dealing with him. But in the end, because of some of the difficulties and the fact that I don't know how experienced the company was with the particulars about installing in this county, which is the Tampa Bay area, so Hillsborough County, there's a couple of peculiarities here. I ended up paying $14,500 for 37 panels, which was pretty close to the 40 panels I had been told I needed. And it ended up costing me $14,500 for the whole thing. It was done, it was wired, it was in. And a few days later, after they hooked it up, I noticed on the app that you can use for all these panels with your inverters, because they will plug it into your internet and you can monitor it. I noticed one of the panels had failed. Well, much to my surprise, they immediately came out and put a brand new panel on, no cost to me, and it was only like a day delay, and they had a new panel in. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the route that I went because, for one, $14,500 total. And then I had to pay some incidentals. So let's just say 15, because there were some fees I actually had to pay with the city and things like that. So let's just say it was 15,000. I got 37 panels. And what that means is that my average electric bill would pay itself off far sooner, like 3 to 4 years, I'd have it paid off. But I actually did send this $15,000 that I had spent, or 14,500, to my accountant, and she got me the federal tax credit. It wasn't a third, but it was $3,000. So I ended up getting the whole setup for $12,000. Well, here in this area, with very hot summers, you actually, I mean, you can have an electric bill $600 to $800 in August, September, July. And so this system, I'm at about 20 months now that I've had it up. In another year and a half, it'll have completely paid for itself. And the electricity that I receive will essentially be free. So that's how I beat the system. And you can too. Look online. Even if you just buy the equipment yourself and hire your own electrician, it's a good way to go. That's what I would recommend. I don't really. I mean, some of the power installers were very straightforward with what it costs. They were very honest about it. Some of the ones I spoke with were not. And either way, it was twice as much as it should have cost. Okay. All right, so that's it. Well, I hope this video gave you the tools you need if you are considering solar power. And if you did find this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me, it helps the channel grow. And hey, if you want to install solar, look into buying the equipment yourself, hiring your own electrician. If you don't know what to buy, your electrician can probably tell you exactly what you need, and then you can just go out and buy it, set up a time, and they'll come out and install it. I did it. I think I beat the system, and you can too. All you need to do is go out and get busy. Take care.